Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. I think we shall begin. So let me invite to the stage our honorable guest, Mr. Filip Ivanovic, Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Foreign Affairs and European Affairs of Montenegro, who is a leading voice in Montenegro's Euro-Atlantic engagement and key architect of its regional diplomacy. Pleasure to have you, sir. I would like to invite Mr. Peter Szijjártó, Minister of Foreign Affairs and Trade from Hungary, who is known for his outspoken approach to foreign policy amidst a shifting European landscape. Peter, great to have you. Let me invite Ruben Rubinian, Vice President of the National Assembly of Armenia, who plays a central role in shaping Armenia's parliamentary diplomacy and foreign policy outreach. Great to have you with us. Actually, he speaks Polish, so I maybe will ask a question to him in Polish. So, Polish language is not easy, it's really an achievement. Let me invite to the podium also Charles Flanagan, Ireland's former Minister for Foreign Affairs and Justice, who brings decades of experience navigating EU diplomacy, transatlantic ties and legal reforms. Great to have you with us. And last but not least, Sachin Pilot, prominent Indian politician and member of the Rajasthan Legislative Assembly, who combines legislative leadership with a forward-looking vision for India's role in global affairs. So, ladies and gentlemen, since we have not that much time, in fact, and I believe we have not only interesting subject, but we have very prominent guests with us in the panel, so I will try to limit our statements, and I would like to focus more on questions. So I will try to direct them individually, and if there will be a need and time, I will also open the floor for the public. So please have some questions ready, but I cannot promise there will be a time for them to be asked. So maybe let me start with the first question that I would like to ask our colleague from Montenegro. Montenegro has long walked on the line between Euro-Atlantic integration and regional pressures from larger powers in this fragmented world. And what can small NATO members like Montenegro afford strategic ambiguity? Is it possible, or is clear alignment a safer bet for you?
Well, thanks first of all for a rather poetic introduction, and I'm grateful for that. Indeed, the small countries like Montenegro need to think about a key word that you have also mentioned, navigating. And this is also one of the words that are in the title of this year's Yerevan dialogue. So in order to be successful and in order to achieve prosperity for your country and for your people, you always need to bear in mind your own, of course, interests, but also the interests of the others, especially of those that are close to you. I very often say, and I'm not the author of the phrase, but I often say geography is destiny. So you cannot escape your region, you cannot escape those that are the closest ones to you. But very often, just like in personal relations, sometimes you have most problems with the people that are closest to you, even if they are your family members. But it's important to learn how to live together. And you know, you have mentioned our region. It did have quite a lot of turmoil throughout history and even in the last 30 years. So we are still recovering from this kind of turmoil in our region, but I think that we are managing. And what I have been very happy what I'm happy to convey is that, for example, recently we got the new growth plan from the European Union that refers to the whole region of Western Balkans. And we have summits of Western Balkan countries with our guests from Brussels, even also from the United States. And I'm happy to say that at these summits, the leaders of our Western Balkan countries, they actually talk only about cooperation. And they talk only about how we can use these funds from the new growth plan in order to make our countries individually better, but also to improve the regional cooperation. So it's important that this kind of discussions are held and they are not hijacked by some sort of a political or national particular agenda. So we are managing, we are doing it, but of course we are still not there. Many countries in the world have different kinds of challenges, but as a country that is, as I said, small, and it's even in its ethnic composition has quite a lot to share with all the neighbors around us, we really need to be very careful on how we position ourselves. We try to do it, but we also try to keep the best possible relations with all the neighbors, because those are the closest ones that we have. Sometimes it's not easy, but...
Philip, if I may, since you are new to NATO relatively, and we are in Armenia and our colleagues are listening, they want to have some lessons from your experience, and we all know some stories of some hybrid attacks that your country suffered over the last decade. Probably originated from authoritarian countries. And Armenia, being on the crossroad, might face some challenges as well. Do you have some recommendations for that?
Well, again, geography is destiny, and it's not the same for us in the heart of the Mediterranean, in the heart of Europe, in Western Balkans, and for countries in this region. So you need to take care about your individual needs and about the, of course, character of your surroundings. Indeed, we did have, for example, 3 years ago, we had a cyber attack on our administration. With the help of our NATO allies and partner countries, we managed to recover from this. So this was one very concrete and pragmatic proof of how important it is to build relations with your NATO allies and with partner countries. I cannot give recommendations to other countries, but we have also had meetings with the Armenian Minister of Foreign Affairs, and we promised any kind of help and support and share of experience that might Armenia need from us, and we will stand with Armenia in that way.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Let me ask the second question to our colleague from Hungary, Peter, if I might to ask you. Hungary often positions itself as a sovereign actor and balancing East and West. Yet critics argue that this weakens collective EU and NATO deterrence. Is national agility in foreign policy possible without eroding alliance coherence?
First of all, thank you so much for the invitation. Once again, I'm honored to be here for the second time. What you have raised is a very important dilemma nowadays, because those countries who stand up for their own sovereignty are being challenged and on many occasions attacked pretty much. Our position is crystal clear. Our foreign policy is being navigated by the national interest. Hungary first, may I paraphrase. Hungary first. National interest comes first. What I think is missing now a lot from international politics, and this might be the reason why the sovereignists and the patriots are being attacked very heavily, is mutual respect. Mutual respect is absolutely missing, is absolutely absent currently from the international political arena. Look at the debates. Once you raise an issue which does not fall 100% in line with the liberal mainstream, you are either being considered as a right extremist, fascist, Nazi, whatever, or you are being considered the spy of the Russians, the propagandist of the Kremlin, or the friend of Putin. These are the two extremes. You can choose if you are not in line with the liberal mainstream fully. And I think this is very sad, because this shows that the intellectual level of standards of international political debates now is very low. And I regret to say that the European Union is leading the pack in this regard in a negative way. In a negative way. In the last couple of years, it was very complicated to carry out a rational kind of dialogue within the European political arena. With the war breaking out in Ukraine, this became basically impossible. for example, when it comes to energy, which is the most physical issue of the world, because you need pipelines, you need ships, you need gas, you need oil, and it's obvious that you cannot heat your homes with political statements or press conferences. Even this issue is being super over-politicized. So I think that if countries of the world, if governments are able to come back a little bit from over-politicizing, from over-ideologizing things, and if international liberal mainstream stops putting patriots on the side, the whole international political arena will improve a lot. With President Trump winning in the United States, it has improved a lot immediately. Because those who have been marginalized are now in the mainstream. Those who have been pushed aside are now becoming the majority. And I think that patriotism and sovereignistic approach is now becoming an approach which used to be sidelined, but is becoming more and more mainstream. So big changes are going on in international politics in this regard.
Peter, I could agree on one element. Let's make it crystal clear, as you said, and let's talk no values, let's talk interests. And we are in Armenia, and our colleagues are interested what Europeans think about countries that aspire to join the European Union. We had yesterday Prime Minister of Slovakia, Mr. Fico, who was speaking at the opening, and he said that if Ukraine will fulfill accession criteria of EU membership, he will vote yes. What is the Hungarian statement, and what is your crystal clear position on it? But crystal clear, just straightforward.
Sure. I mean, you can't expect anything else from me. So when it comes to enlargement of the European Union, there's a big hypocrisy in the room. Why? Because the majority of the EU member states say totally different things in front of public than behind closed doors. In front of public, they are in favor of enlargement. When we are behind closed doors, they bring forward a long list of obstacles why enlargement cannot take place. Look at the poor Montenegrins. Sorry to say that, Philip. I mean, Montenegro is here, a country which cannot endanger European Union neither with size nor with population, a country which is already member of the Eurozone, a country which is already member of NATO. Why we don't accept Montenegro as member of the European Union? Why we don't accept Serbia as a member of the European Union? Why we don't do so with North Macedonia? Look, my friend,
but question about Armenia.
Yeah, the countries of the Western Balkans have been in the waiting room for an average of 15 years now. So what kind of pro-enlargement policy we are speaking about? Keeping these countries 15 years in line. Your question regarding Ukraine. To be honest, based on the current circumstances, I can't imagine that Ukraine fulfills the necessary criteria in a foreseeable future.
If they fulfill.
Sorry?
If they fulfill.
I can't see that coming, to be honest, because we have a lot of experience with them. We have a big Hungarian community there, rights of which are being violated very badly.
So you don't want to give
sorry?
You don't want to give a hope to Ukrainians that they can join one day EU?
Well, there's an expression which is being used in the European Union, which is merit-based process. This is what the Western Balkan guys have to listen to, merit-based process. Being in war is not a merit. So in this regard, at least for sure. So when it comes to EU membership, there's a very clear list of criteria. I don't see them coming closer to fulfill that, but there's going to be a referendum in Hungary where the people can make a very clear choice whether they support Ukraine becoming member of European Union or not. And since we are a democratic government, we will follow the will of the people.
Well, I think this is the diplomatic way away from the question. You know, you don't ask questions about taxes to the public. I mean, there is no referendum on taxes. And sometimes we have
but this is not about
from
taxes.
Politicians. I know, but this is a strategic interest of both Ukraine and Hungary. So maybe some of those questions should be taken by the leadership. So.
No, but we are not afraid of asking the opinion of people in strategic issues. We have been carrying out national consultancies in many, many issues, like the constitution as well, like migration, like family policy, like our approach to Brussels. And we have always respected the will of the people. Look, you are a Polish. You have an experience about the approach of Brussels to your former government, which equals to the approach of Brussels to our current government. We are always under attack for rule of law, for democracy. And whenever we turn to the people to ask them, we are bashed for asking the people. Then my question is, what is democracy if not asking the people and fulfilling their wish? That's democracy. You know, we have been faced with the approach that if it is not a liberal party to win elections, it's not a democracy. If a right-wing party wins elections, it's a dictatorship. And I fully disagree with that. Democracy is about asking the will of the people. Once they express their will, the government has to perform according to that. That's my definition about democracy.
Well, I would say this is pretty selective democracy. This is not Switzerland, that you have the legal status and the system in Hungary. But let me switch to our colleagues in our hosts, since we have our Armenian colleague, and I would like to ask the question about current strategic choices. Armenia is recently taking a significant legislative step by initiating symbolically the process of EU accession by adopting the bill in the parliament, signaling a clear aspiration for a deeper integration with Europe. At the same time, Prime Minister Pashinyan, our host today, attended a Victory Day parade in Moscow. And recently we have seen Minister of Foreign Affairs Lavrov visiting Yerevan just days ago. How does Armenia reconcile these long-standing ties with Russia while advancing a European trajectory?
Thank you. Let me first greet our honorable guests. It's a pleasure to have you all in Yerevan. Regarding Armenia, we have to first look at the history of modern independent Armenia and the security architecture around Armenia. For almost 3 decades, Armenia's security was dependent from one source of security, namely Russia and the security organizations connected to it. And the previous government, and also our government before the war of 2020, thought that this is enough to guarantee Armenia's security and Armenia's territorial integrity. But as events unfolded, it became clear that over-reliance on one source of security or one provider of security simply doesn't work, because when the time comes and the security organizations or countries that have obligations to intervene don't want to. We can have debates about that, but the fact is that it didn't happen. And as a result, we have had ethnic cleansing in Nagorno-Karabakh. We have had Azerbaijan occupying around 200 square kilometers of sovereign Armenian territory, and it became evident that Armenia needs to diversify its security strategy, and not only security strategy. And Armenia has adopted now a policy of balance and balancing, which means that Armenia strives for deeper integration with the EU, for more cooperation with the US, with France, with India. We are very happy to see that security cooperation with India is getting deeper and deeper. But regarding EU aspirations, those may be connected to security, but not only. It is our conviction that the Armenian people have always strived to be closer to Europe. Armenians are culturally and politically European, and Armenia has embarked on a path of closer integration with the EU for decades now. We have had the comprehensive and enhanced partnership agreement with the EU, which still is in force, and as you said rightly, recently the Armenian Parliament adopted a law on European integration, which is a manifestation of the will of the Armenian people to be closer to the EU. But nevertheless, as the minister rightly mentioned, geography is destiny, and you have to take into account your surroundings. from the Armenian perspective, being closer to the EU does indeed mean being closer to the EU, but it doesn't mean that Armenia should become a separate planet in the Caucasus with no relations with its neighbors or countries in its region, and this is our strategy.
Ruben, if I might interrupt
yes.
you, does the shift in U.S. and President Trump taking the power over there had any impact on your strategic choices?
A positive impact, yes.
Positive, okay. So I agree that geography is, of course, determining your neighborhood, but it's history and trade that determine who is your friend, and who is your partner. So if you could indicate which countries you envision as promising partners in the coming years, which would be on the priority list?
Well, yes, geography is destiny, but you can also change your destiny in your geography, and that's what Armenia is trying to do right now. It's not a secret that Armenia has been in a partial blockade ever since it gained its independence, basically, and we are trying to change the dynamic of the region of the South Caucasus, which will itself change the dynamic in the wider European region and also the dynamics in Central Asia, Middle East. What needs to be done? The position of Armenia is very simple. Right now we have a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to create peace, lasting peace in the South Caucasus. We have a rare situation where neither Azerbaijan nor Armenia have to concede anything.
So the first answer is Azerbaijan.
Of course.
And the second and the third one?
Obviously, whenever you are talking about trade partnerships, the first answers are always your immediate neighbors. And we have a situation that we don't have relations with, or we don't have normalized relations with two of our neighbors, and that hinders all connectivity in our region of the South Caucasus and beyond. So the first answer is not just Azerbaijan. The first answer is Azerbaijan, Iran, Turkey, and Georgia. Okay. The second answer would be countries neighboring those countries. And we think that this opportunity we have, and I want to repeat, we have a historic chance when neither Azerbaijan nor Armenia have to concede anything on the ground. We have a situation, a status quo, and we have a text of a peace treaty ready. Negotiations have been finalized and closed, and we have a historic opportunity to sign and ratify this peace treaty. We have a historic opportunity to unblock all communications in the region of South Caucasus, which means all communications between Azerbaijan and Armenia, and in a separate track, all communications between Armenia and Turkey. And this will change the whole dynamic in the South Caucasus, the whole security architecture. And since we are discussing the theme of our panel is how can small countries navigate in these turbulent times. Well, this is how small countries can navigate. It's the number one source of uncertainty for small countries or even medium-sized countries in the modern world where the global order is collapsing, is conflict. You eliminate conflict, you eliminate uncertainty. You unblock communications, you eliminate uncertainty. And you also eliminate the risk of new conflicts. So this is our strategy. It's difficult, I have to admit. It's difficult also because our potential partners are not as constructive as we would like them to see, but we want to show on our own example that peace is possible, and we are going to do everything in our force to do this.
Thank you very much for your answer. Now let me ask Charles a question about Ireland foreign policy, which has for a long time has been anchored in neutrality and soft power. We just discussed before the panel that you have like 70 million diaspora around the world, which is really impressive. Country of Poland, 40 million of population, much larger. We have only 10 million in comparison of the Polish diaspora living abroad. So you have a soft power. But in today's era of hard security and hybrid threats, how can small state maintain credibility and relevance without militarization? And I would like to refer to the decisions taken recently by countries like Sweden, 300 years of neutrality abandoned due to Russian aggression on Ukraine. And even Finlandization has a different meaning these days that it used to have. So what is the strategy of neutrality for Ireland? Is it still relevant?
Thank you very much. I think this is the key to the debate, how small states can survive in the globally turbulent and security challenging times. Ireland and Armenia are both small states, albeit on different sides of the continent of Europe. Ruben, when he was speaking, I was struck by the fact that we can change our politics, but we can't change our geographic location. I have a quote. Let me give you a small quote from the famous Czech author Milan Kundera, who said in relation to small nations, "A small nation was one which could only develop a unique culture and guarantee its survival by embracing a wider international context." And although I'm from far Western Europe, Kundera was from Central Europe, and Armenia is in the southern regions of the Caucasus, I can relate very much with that comment from Kundera. And the reason that Ireland has been successful over its last 100 years, in spite of real and serious difficulties within our region and beyond, was because we had a policy of generosity. And the cornerstone of our foreign policy is the international multilateral rules-based order, our membership of the United Nations. You quite rightly point out that we're not members of NATO, and I don't see Ireland joining NATO in the immediate future, given the immediate turbulence and given the history of our country, but we do closely acknowledge what has happened among our EU colleagues, Sweden and Finland, and we have reaffirmed our commitment towards European security and defence, very much involved in the European strategic compass, very much involved in European peacekeeping, engaging, while not as full members of NATO, in collaborative projects involving NATO. And I think that's what all states should be doing in the context of the current challenges. Looking at the United Nations, where we have thrived as members over the years, being members of the Security Council in recent times, application being a candidate for the Human Rights Council. The Universal Declaration of Human Rights is fundamental to our policy, as is a membership of the European Union. And it's within the European Union that I feel we can influence and mould matters in conjunction with partnerships and other small states. I was struck by the criticism of the European Union, actually, since I came here yesterday morning, and in particular at the outset by the contribution, albeit short, of Prime Minister Fico. I think that was continued in a number of the panel discussions and roundtables yesterday. But I believe in these turbulent times, we should look to the fundamental values of the European Union, the positives of the European Union, for example, the single market, and acknowledge the fact and recommit ourselves to the fact that the European Union is the greatest single peace process that this world has ever seen over the last 80 years. And rather than be targeting aspects of the European Union, rather than being critical of what I heard to be the neo-imperialism of the European Union, we should look to the facts. European Union has never sought colonies. European Union has never had colonies. European Union is a voluntary membership organization. People can join it. If they wish, people are queuing up to join. And of course, there is a rules-based order under which they must undertake standardization before they can join. People can leave the European Union. Indeed, my nearest neighbour, my colleagues in the UK, left the European Union. Can I say, acknowledging the fact that that was a sovereign decision taken by the British people in a referendum, but what I see now is very much a change of heart, very much a buyer's remorse. Ireland, on the other hand, is firmly embedded to the European values, human rights, the fundamentals of democracy, all of which are known to everybody in this room, but oftentimes we neglect to commit to them
Charles,
in the form.
Your words are honey to my heart. But as we said, as you reminded me about your huge diaspora in US, mainly, could you maybe explain to us what has happened in the US, that we have the administration that is not very much, in my opinion, to talk about values of our allies, more about interests and business transactions. And is it kind of concern for you?
Yes, I'm very concerned following the recent presidential election in the United States. But I say that as an Irish person, acknowledging the fact that we have a diaspora worldwide of almost 75 million people, almost all of whom are in the English-speaking world, because as a small island on the western periphery of Europe, we weren't particularly good at languages at the time of our migration. But across the United States of America, there are up to 35 million people who claim Irish ancestry. There's not a city hall from Boston and New York to San Francisco and Los Angeles that doesn't have an Irish mayor or deputy mayor or councillor or group.
So you take the responsibility for American elections, that's what you say?
No, I wouldn't take responsibility for any elections other than those in Ireland. And even in Ireland, I subject myself to the electorate, as I have done at each election from 1987 until 2024 when I didn't stand. But let me say that we use our soft power to influence the Irish diaspora to promote our interests. And it seems from listening to Armenians here at this conference and before that Irish interest and Armenian interest, albeit they're from different parts of the world, are very much in common. And we will continue to lobby for and on behalf of the multilateral rules-based order, regretting that in some countries in Europe and beyond, we see a regression to a type of populist nationalism, which causes me some concern and runs against the grain of Irish political strategy for the last 100 years. We are nestled between the United States of America and the United Kingdom, both of which have proved to be challenging in terms of our relationship, but both of which we will continue to liaise with in a constructive and collaborative manner in order to promote the best interests of our people.
Thank you very much, Charles. Thank you very much. So my last question in this round is to Sachin. India is a rising power. I've just been to Resina Dialogue organized by our partner, ORF Foundation. It was on one side very impressive, but on another hand, it was very frustrating, I must say, to hear the voice of Global South, which was very aggressive towards collective West. And it was more or less like, we always knew that your soft power intentions are evil, and only now President Trump admitted that it was true, that dissolvement of US aid and all its soft power tools was dissolving this evil impact on the global scale. And I must say that for me, as a representative of NGO, it was very painful to listen. And I think for our colleagues from Norway or other countries developed, they want to share with developing countries their success and want to empower them. So my question is about how do you want to navigate Indian strategic choices between West and East, between being a trade partner with Russia and being a political partner with US. You think this is sustainable?
Well, thank you very much for having me here this afternoon. Well, first thing I would like to say is that I think the global order has changed so dramatically recently that all that we heard and we professed for 40, 50 years is now almost in shambles. We always heard and talked and discussed global trade, free trade, liberal, open, democratic societies, movement of labor, material, globalization was a word that was used very commonly. But now we are seeing a completely new world order. And I'd like to take for a few minutes of your time to step out of the Eurocentric discussion we've had this far.
We have 14 minutes. So.
I'll take much less. In 1990, there were 69 countries which were electoral democracies. 69. Today it's 106. But to my mind, conducting and winning elections is not democracy. Democracy is when you do get majority, but the fact that you have the moral strength of character to listen to opposition, to keep the institutions alive, transparent, unbiased. And the function of democracy is to say, to hear, to act, and then follow what the majority says. So it's not simple to say that, like you very simply said, India has relationships with Russia and with the US. And why not? India represents 1/5 of humanity. And we are now at a stage where we continue to grow very rapidly. We have our troubles. And like someone mentioned geography. You can't change geography, but you can certainly break away from the pack and prove yourself. I think what is happening today is that countries like the US have pulled out of, for example, WTO. They pulled out of UNHRC, the Paris Agreement. It shows that today it is not about idealism. There were times when the countries were protected by the Soviet bloc or the US. I think even NATO is being pushed. It's now each country for its own. And moving ahead, it'll be more transactional. It's not ideology. It's going to be self-interest, like one of the panelists talked about, self-interest. Obviously, every country must, at the top of the list, follow its self-interest. But you must also believe in what sort of a country you want to make for yourself. I think smaller countries today have a much more difficult landscape to navigate because the world has got more globalized, but there are many barriers. We have tariff wars, we have conflicts, state-sponsored conflicts around the world. So how do you maintain prosperity in a time when there is insecurity? Insecurity because there are many factors that have actually disturbed the global status quo. So you'll need people with broad level of thinking and how they can get people together. It's very easy to comment on conflicts from the outside. It's the parties involved that have to bear the brunt of what's happening in their countries. So every country will act, I think, more and more in isolation. Multilateral platforms like the UN, etc., I think are losing their relevance because post-Second World War, the world has changed so much and the institution has not changed. It hasn't reformed itself. Therefore, it is losing relevance. There are issues on which we'll have to collaborate. You see, many countries, small and big, have to work together. For example, when the pandemic happened, we all had to work together. It crossed boundaries. For climate change, for example, China and India have very different policies, but ultimately the entire globe, entire planet will suffer if we don't act in tandem. Issues like terrorism, unless we stand up and have a collective voice against denouncing all sorts of terrorism, every country at some point will face that problem. So there are issues that are important for us as a global entity, but I think smaller countries, whether it's in Africa or in Europe or even Asia, have a much more challenging time because that protectionist era is gone. It's each to their own, and they have to look at economic interest far more. 40, 50 years ago, it was socialism, capitalism, idealism. Today, it's economic growth, it's jobs, empowerment, issues of civil liberties, and how do you have a literate society. As we open up more, the challenge before the next generation will be how do they grapple with the challenges of the next century. We've actually moved so quickly in the last 15 years. In the 70s and 80s, what we hear today was unheard of. And I think the next generation of young people will have a much more challenging time because the disruptions, the conflicts, regional and large scale, are bound to happen as the global order undergoes a massive paradigm change. So I think as far as my country is concerned, I've worked in the government and in the opposition. One thing I can tell all of you here, that we believe in our form of democracy. Every country has its own way of living its democracy, but we have never exported our democracy to other lands. We believe every country has the right to choose who they want to elect as a leader or a government, but we believe that an inclusive, pluralistic, secular, forward-looking, open economy and open country is the best way for a democracy to function. I'll repeat one last line.
Sachin, if I could jump in for a second. You said that you cannot export democracy. So where is the red line to tolerate your partners, which they should not cross, and that they are respected to be a partner, that you can respect them? Is there a red line for it?
Look,
if you don't expect that your partner are democratic states,
no, I think
so.
Like
let's
say
authoritarian regimes.
Americans keep pushing the red line. Right? It depends what suits them. I think the Americans are okay. Forget Americans. I think any country, if you start dictating what your set of values is, and you impose on somebody else, that is not fair. Every sovereign country has a choice to choose its government. Of course, there are human rights issues, civil rights issues, but I don't believe we as a country or as a nation should impose our ideal form of democracy into other countries. Every country has elections. How open, how transparent, it's for them to decide. We can comment, we can give our views, we have an opinion, but it's unfair to impose your set of ideals on other countries. That's my personal view.
So you're saying that you could talk and maintain diplomatic relations with every country despite of what they do at home?
Not at all. When the conflict between Ukraine and Russia happened, India took a very firm stand. Our stand is for peace. We do not encourage anyone fighting. We have suffered terrorism recently. 26 people in my country were gunned down in cold blood by terrorists from across the border. And, we have suffered for decades. So I am, for one, very openly saying that conflicts are a no-go. But should everybody intervene? Should we not have a multilateral platform to discuss these things? Should Security Council not have any strength at all? Should NATO keep expanding eastwards? Should China have its own region of influence? These are very complex, challenging questions. But I think as a responsible country, we have to be careful of how much we preach to the world and how much we act on our own.
Do you think NATO, UN is a relevant platform to solve these kind of problems like Ukraine?
What is?
That United Nations is the right place to solve the problem of
I have been saying, my country's been saying, UN has to reform itself. But unless we have a better alternative, we have to make do with what we have. It's time the Security Council changes its composition. It's time the UN has a more reflective landscape of society and world today than it did 50, 70 years ago. So unless we have a better alternative, we have to work with what we have. But UN definitely needs a massive reform going forward.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, we have like 6 minutes. And I think that I will not make a second round of questions because as you see, these are very sophisticated issues and they demand answers. So I would like to collect like 3 questions and then I will allow our panelists to respond to them. So I see, let's make it representative. I see lady in red over there. I see lady over there. And I see a lady here in the first row. So let's make it women ask questions.
Teresa Fallon, Center for Russia, Europe, Asia Studies. Thank you for a very stimulating panel and a master class on how to be a moderator. Thank you. Peter, I have a question for you. Hungary has such a complex relationship both with Russia and China, which seems to be definitely at odds with many in the rest of the EU. How do you see the way forward? Because there doesn't seem to be any ability to have a China policy, because in the past, Hungary has blocked or watered down any other types of policy measures that Brussels wants to make in order to pull the EU together and have an EU policy towards China. What is the payoff for Hungary? I don't understand. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. The second question was over there, lady in the third row.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for the vibrant panel discussion. My name is Mercedes. I'm a young fellow from Ethiopia representing Africa. So my question is, the national interest first approach, this national interest first approach has indeed been a dominant paradigm for centuries, and it has not led to a world free from conflict. So isn't it a time to think alternative strategies, maybe that focus on the common humanity, sense of common humanity? That's my question.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for the young generation voice. Very, very important. And in the first row.
Hello, my name is Małgorzata Bonikowska. I lost my voice. Too many discussions, I think, here in Yerevan. I come from Poland. I have questions to everyone, all the panelists. How do you see, taking into consideration you are all politicians, the new world order emerging with a special attention of the position and the interactions between the US, Russia, and European Union also? And to Peter, a special comment, you are a member of this bloc. How do you see the strength of this bloc if there is no unanimous position towards certain activities, partly because of Hungary? Thank you.
Peter, you are the star, as you see. Everyone want to ask the questions. So thank you very much. Let's make it, try to please very condensed and very, very brief. So maybe let's start first with questions to Peter. As you see, there was most of them probably. So if you could elaborate a bit.
When it comes to our approach to Russia and China, and if we try to discover the difference of our approach to other Europeans, I would say that we are doing it openly and honestly, and the others are doing it in a hidden way with a big bunch of hypocrisy. And I tell you why I say this. When it comes to Russia, Hungary openly cooperates with Russia on energy, because this is a matter of physics. If we cut the energy relationship with Russia, physically speaking, the country is not able to be supplied neither by gas nor by oil, not because of political taste, not because of political gestures, but because of physics. We are a landlocked country. We have interconnected ourselves with 6 of the 7 neighbors, but since not all of the neighbors have made their own investments, and the neighbors of the neighbors have not made all their investments, currently we are dependent on the Russian sources. Once again, because of politics? No. Because of lack of willingness? No. Because of geography and because of physics. But let me tell you one thing. We openly buy gas from Russia on pipeline. But the LNG imports from Russia to the European Union last year have hit huge records. Why? Because France, Spain, and Belgium bought huge amount of Russian LNG. Did anyone ask the French colleague yesterday why you buy record high amount of Russian LNG? No, because it's a big and strong country.
Peter,
but
if I might...
Do you ask Hungary? Yes, you do. On China, there are 18 billion euros of Chinese investments going on in Hungary currently, 18 billion euros. 44% of all Chinese investments heading Europe have ended up in Hungary. Why? Because they have been attracted by the German presence. Why? Because in Hungary, we have German automotive factories, big. We are the only country in Europe besides Germany where all 3 German premium car makers are present. But you know where they buy their batteries from? From Chinese companies.
Peter,
so what happens in Hungary?
I agree with you.
Once a big Chinese factory is being built, On the next plot, a big German, and then a big
Peter,
Chinese
we have
factory.
very little time, but
geography. These are next to each other, and we are proud to be a meeting point for the Eastern and Western investment in Hungary. And once again, it's not Hungary who buys the batteries from China, but it's the German car manufacturers who do so. So when we speak about decoupling, when we speak about de-risking, then ask the global CEOs of German companies why they call me on a weekly basis to bring their Chinese suppliers to Hungary. That's the physical reality.
I agree that geography is a challenge for all of us. We can't solve it immediately, but politics we can solve quite fast as political turbulences. We are in Armenia right now, hosted by our generous friends, and you can solve the problem. I can give you a recommendation, maybe, or advice. Well, there is a European peace facility support, 25 million European money offered to Armenia, and Hungary is the only country in the EU blocking it. Would you support maybe releasing those money to Armenia to build hospitals for the Armenian people? Because this is the dedication of those resources. So maybe there is a green light. Maybe you want to send a message for Yerevan that Hungary is a friend of Armenia.
Yes, of course. First of all, it's 20 million, just to be precise. 20 million non-lethal aid to the army of Armenia, where we have said we are fine with that. But in order to be balanced and the European Union not to cause any kind of convenience in a very fragile situation where we are finally very close to, hopefully, to signing the agreement between Armenia and Azerbaijan, our request was that the European Union gives a similar amount of non-lethal support to Azerbaijan. Last time it worked out, 10 million euros to Armenia,
but Azerbaijan doesn't want money.
10 million euros to Azerbaijan, and this time it can work out as well. So I had a great conversation and an agreement with your foreign minister an hour ago, where I made him very clear that we are fine with the EPF support to Armenia, with a similar kind of support to Azerbaijan from any EU resource. And since it has already worked out once, it will work out now as well.
So thank you very much. I think we have a news that Hungarian minister just confirmed that European Peace Facility resources for Armenia have a green light from Hungary. Thank you very much for it. I think this is important. So, ladies and gentlemen, we are already over time, but I'm a think tanker and I respect our panelists very much. Peter, you are silent now. I will ask our other colleagues to have the final words. Something what you would like to say in below 30 seconds, something what was not mentioned, and something what might refer to the questions that were asked. So let's start with our Armenian host. Ruben.
Yeah, I'd like to answer the question regarding putting your nation first and whether it's a good strategy, because I think this question summarizes the essence of whole our discussion. Indeed, it is in the very nature of any government in the world at any point in history to put their nation first. But putting your nation first should not mean that values don't exist and cooperation doesn't exist, and that, most importantly, rules don't exist. Because paradoxically, if you ignore international rules and values, that is in contradiction to any country's national interests. I mean, this is
Ruben, 30 seconds.
Yeah, this is a classic game theory situation. If 2 countries, 3 countries, 4 countries decide that nothing else matters and only their national interests matter, that automatically means violating their own national interest, because this will create conflicts, this will hinder trade, this will hinder economic cooperation, which will itself create new conflicts, no hindrances, and we will go back in history.
Listening to Armenian colleagues, I see that they are already in the Euro-Atlantic family. It's really wonderful to listen to it. So let me ask our colleagues. So from Ireland, India, and then last but not least, our honourable guest from Montenegro. So Charles.
Well, in short,
very brief.
Yes, I believe it's important that Europe stands united in these times of turbulence, having regard to the fact that it in effect outsourced its security and defense for the last 50 years. I think that needs to change. And can I say, in response to the question from the third row, from the lady, in respect of Africa, it's deplorable to see many of our most influential countries cut international humanitarian aid. I believe Europe has a strong role to play, and we can start by ensuring that we increase our aid to most disadvantaged areas. There are 130 armed conflicts in the world as we speak, and I think we need to do something about it in a positive way.
Thank you very much, Charles. I think this crisis is also an opportunity, and probably the European Union should fill this gap. India.
But I think as the world has become more informed about what's happening, a lot of the unrest and civil problems that happen, they happen because of unequitable growth. When you have economic progress and you have a distribution of income and wealth that is not proportionate, it creates problems in societies, and they lead to then civil unrest, revolutions, and so on and so forth. So I think moving forward, whether you're a small country or a big country, one has to focus on equitable, justifiable growth for all. Because unless we have that mindset of reaching out the last person in the line, we won't be doing justice to our jobs, and we're creating problems for the next generation.
Thank you very much. And our friend from Montenegro.
Well, I have a few things to say, so I will try to speak fast. I was very happy to hear about the European Union as the greatest peacemaking project in the world ever. And this is actually true, but this is a political value. Let's go back to that. So what we have been experiencing is the transformation of a very nice and positive political value into a very technical process. So now we need to balance the two, and if the enlargement does not happen, and if Montenegro does not join the European Union by 2028, it would ruin the very credibility of the European Union. So we need to work together on this, and we are grateful to all the friends that are supporting us. I would also like to say that the European Union has been too much concentrated on itself in the past, and I'm referring to the question from Africa. I think that the European Union needs to work more with Africa, but it also needs to have a specific approach, different from before. And there is something that the European Union can learn from us. We have decades in the Western Balkans of experience with very nice, friendly cooperation with African countries, so they can ask us for advice. And the third thing that I would like to say, I think the expression of the new world order is now obsolete. We have new world order, newer world order, the newest world order. I mean, the world is changing, it's flexible, and we need to adapt and be flexible as well, and not try to put it in some sort of formulas. Okay.
Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, we come to the end. I'm a sailor for 30 years, and I know one rule. You cannot change the wind, you can adjust the sails. And I think that listening to our great panelists, they know how to do it. They know how to adapt. Although the weather is like it's like a 10 of Beaufort scale. But I think that in this crisis, there is also an opportunity. And let's keep fingers for it. Thank you very much. And please join me in a round of applause for our great panelists.